What if everything you've been told about success is wrong? Not a little off, completely, fundamentally upside down wrong. Because we're told success arrives in a leap, in a grand gesture, in a moment of revelation so powerful, everything changes. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. There is no leap. There is only this moment, and the choice to take one quiet, ordinary step. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they're still waiting. Waiting for motivation, for clarity, for the fear to go away. They stare at the summit and convince themselves they're too far behind to even try. And if that's where you are right now, frozen between the dream and the doubt, you're not alone. But you need to hear this. There is no magic moment, no lightning bolt, no divine cue to tell you it's time. The leap is a myth. Progress begins when you stop waiting for perfect and start moving with what you have. Because momentum doesn't start with a grand declaration, it starts with the tiniest motion, a shift in weight, a decision to try, one sentence written, one door opened, one conversation started. You don't need to change your whole life today. You just need to prove to yourself that you're still in it, that you're not done yet. Because the person who takes the step, even a small one, is already doing more than the one still standing still. And the brain fascinatingly rewards action. Behavioral psychology calls it the success spiral. You act, you feel capable. That sense of capability pushes you to act again. It's not motivation that drives the step. It's the step that creates the motivation. So don't wait to feel ready. Take the step and let readiness catch up. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. meant when he said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step." And if you've been staring at the top for too long, maybe it's time to look down. At your feet, at the step right in front of you. Because that's where it starts. Not with the summit, but with the step. Sometimes you take the step, and for a while nothing happens. No applause, no breakthrough, no proof that it's working. Just repetition, just effort, just silence. And in that silence, most people give up. They assume the absence of results means the absence of progress. But real progress has a different language. It doesn't shout, it builds. Jacob Riis once told the story of a stone cutter. A man stands in front of a stone hammering at it, once, twice, 10 times, 50, 100, and still nothing changes. Then, on the 101st blow, the stone cracks. Not because that final swing was stronger, but because of everything that came before it. If you've ever worked and wondered if it's worth it, this is your moment. If you've ever felt like nothing's moving, this is the truth. It is. You just can't see it yet. Because that's how progress works. It hides until it's ready to be seen. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's how real transformation happens. Every strike builds pressure, every step lays foundation, and eventually there's a tipping point. In physics, they call it critical mass. In psychology, we call it breakthrough. And if you've been swinging day after day with no crack in sight, don't stop now, because the next swing may not be the first one that matters. It may be the one that reveals all the ones that already did. The British cycling team didn't dominate by revolution. They changed everything by 1%. Pillows, bike seats, hand washing, tiny adjustments, small swings. But those micro wins added up until their dominance looked inevitable. It wasn't magic, it was math. And it's the same with you. Each day you move, you're building something invisible but unshakable. Discipline, self-trust, a record of proof that says, "I do not stop." That's what the 100th blow really represents. Not force faith. So if you're wondering if it's working, keep going. If the results are quiet, keep going. If no one notices, keep going. Because one day the stone will split, and they'll call it sudden. But you'll know better. You earned it. Swing by swing, step by step. There's a lie we all fall for at some point. The idea that change has to feel big. That it must be hard, loud, heroic. So we wait for the moment that feels worthy of a beginning. But change doesn't start with force. It starts with permission. The permission to take one small, quiet step, even if it feels too small to matter. And this is where most people stay stuck. Not because they're lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because they're chasing transformation while ignoring the inch in front of them. If you're overwhelmed by the distance, exhausted by how far you still have to go, or ashamed of how many times you've started over, you're not broken. You're human. But here's what most don't realize. Your brain is designed to protect you from discomfort. It resists big, sweeping change. It sees massive goals as threats, but tiny actions, they slip past the fear, past the resistance. B.J. Fogg, a behavioral scientist at Stanford, calls it the tiny habits method. Make the change so small, it doesn't trigger alarm. Don't aim to run 5 miles, aim to put on your shoes. Don't try to write a chapter, try to open the document. Don't set a goal to become someone new. Set an intention to act like the version of you you'd admire, just for the next 5 minutes. Because when you act like the person you want to become, your identity starts to shift. Not from positive thinking, but from proof. James Clear said it this way: every action is a vote for the type of person you wish to become, and no vote is wasted. The habit doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be cast. So if you've been stuck, don't focus on the finish line. Look for the first inch. That's where progress begins. Not when it's impressive, but when it's possible. Because the step you take today might feel small, but it speaks loudly to your future. It says, I'm still moving, and that's the kind of person who makes it. Not the one with the best plan. The one who moves inch by inch. You wake up early. You resist the easier choice. You show up, even when no one asked you to. And nothing happens. No praise, no change, no signal from the world that says, yes, that counted. That's the moment when doubt creeps in. Not when it's hard, when it's quiet. And if you've ever sat in that silence, wondering if the work matters, wondering if anyone cares, wondering if this is just another effort that leads nowhere, then this part is for you. Because the days without applause are not empty. They're foundational. This is when your roots grow. There's a lesson in the story of the Chinese bamboo tree, planted, watered, and nurtured for years before anything is visible above the surface. 4 years. Nothing. And then in a matter of weeks, it explodes upwards, dozens of feet. But that wasn't sudden growth. It was sustained effort finally becoming visible. And if your life feels like soil with no sprout, don't stop watering. You are not stuck. You are strengthening. Harvard researchers Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer studied what keeps people motivated in long-term goals. It wasn't rewards, it wasn't praise. It was something quieter, something they called the progress principle. The feeling that even on the smallest scale, you moved forward today. You did one thing that mattered. And when you recognize that progress, even privately, your brain responds. It releases dopamine. Not because you won the war, but because you won a moment. And that's enough to try again tomorrow. So here's the shift. Don't wait to be noticed. Be the one who notices. Did you show up today? Did you keep the promise no one else could see? Did you stay true to the version of you you're building? Then the day was not lost. The applause might be silent, but your integrity wasn't. You were consistent, and that is always louder than the noise. One day, others will see what you've become. But by then, you won't need their validation, because you'll know exactly where it came from. Step by step, alone if you must, forward anyway. You want to move faster. Of course you do. You want results that validate your effort, a transformation that shows up in the mirror, in the numbers, in the comments from other people that say, I see it. But real progress doesn't work like that. It doesn't arrive in a burst. It accumulates, quietly, patiently, one layer at a time. There's an old African proverb that says, little by little, a little becomes a lot. And those who understand it move differently. They don't chase lightning, they build fires. Because they've realized that what you repeat, you become. 10 pages read a day becomes a library finished. One honest conversation becomes trust that lasts a lifetime. 1 pound saved becomes a safety net, a life shift, a future you didn't think you'd ever earn. But it doesn't feel that way when you're in it. It feels slow, boring, thankless. It feels like work, and that's exactly what makes it rare. Most people quit not because they're incapable, but because they don't respect the math. The math of momentum, the math of the compound effect. A penny doubled every day for 31 days becomes over 10 million. 1% better each day for a year? That's not 365% better, that's 37 times better. James Clear laid that out not as poetry, but as truth. This isn't about inspiration, it's about inevitability. Because what you do today isn't isolated. It's connected to every version of you that came before, and every version that's still waiting to exist. And every small step, every quiet win, every moment where you chose growth over comfort, those are investments. They don't disappear, they accumulate. And if today feels too ordinary to matter, look closer. Because this step, the one you almost didn't take, is building something. It's building you. And you, little by little, are becoming unstoppable. Not with noise, but with proof. Some days, the voice in your head will fight you. It'll say, "What's the point?" It'll say you're tired. It'll say you've earned a break. And maybe you have. But here's the truth. The days that don't feel significant often are. Because what you do when you don't feel like it is what defines who you are. Not the days when you're motivated, not when you're full of energy and drive. Anyone can take the step then. The real test is the gray days, the flat ones, the ones where your best isn't your maximum. It's simply not quitting. And if today is one of those days, you're not failing. You're building something far more valuable than momentum. You're building identity. The science is simple. Every action reinforces a belief about who you are. Even a tiny action, taken in resistance to the urge to quit, casts a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And that person, the one who moves forward even when it's hard, that person becomes consistent. Not perfect, consistent. And consistency is the real superpower. Jerry Seinfeld had a rule: write jokes every day. Mark the calendar with a red X. The only goal? Don't break the chain. That's it. That's the game. Don't let today be a zero. Do something. One push-up, one sentence, one breath of silence before the next storm. Because even a drop of effort keeps the river flowing. And it's always better to go to bed having done something, no matter how small, than to tell yourself once again, "I'll start tomorrow." This isn't about achieving greatness in a day. It's about refusing to disappear from your own story. You don't need to conquer the whole staircase today. Just put your foot on the next step, especially when you don't feel like it. Because the you that keeps going on days like this is the one the future will thank. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is keep going when nothing seems to change. You do the work, you swing the hammer, you repeat the step, and still the result stays the same. It's tempting to think it's not working, that you're not working. But maybe the purpose of these moments isn't to change the outcome. Maybe it's to change you. Jacob Riis told a story of a man who strikes a stone 100 times. Nothing happens, no crack, no sound, no shift. But on the 101st blow, the stone breaks. Not because that swing was special, but because every swing before it had built the pressure. And what Riis didn't say, but what's equally true, is that the stone wasn't the only thing that changed. The man did too, because that kind of persistence reshapes more than stone. It reshapes self-perception. It replaces doubt with certainty, fragility with grit, hope with proof. And maybe the reason you haven't quit is because quietly, you've already changed. You've become someone who moves forward without guarantees. Someone who shows up without fanfare. Someone who doesn't just chase motivation, but creates it. That's not discipline. That's identity. It's the moment you realize you don't need to be pushed anymore. You've become the one who moves anyway. Because the step is no longer something you force. It's who you are. And that shift, it's what most people never reach, because they stop before it arrives. They break before the stone does. But not you. You've seen too much now. You've stayed too long to turn around. And what's coming isn't just the crack in the stone. It's the reflection of a self you can finally trust. Not the version waiting to become something, but the one who already has. Some changes announce themselves. Others stay hidden, and the most powerful ones often grow in silence. There's a reason the story of the Chinese bamboo tree has lasted. You plant the seed, you water it, you wait. And for 5 years, nothing shows.
No sprout, no leaf, no proof.
But during that time, beneath the surface, roots are spreading. Deep, wide, interlocking, preparing for something that will eventually rise with breathtaking speed. 80 feet in 6 weeks. But it wasn't 6 weeks of growth. It was 5 years of faith. 5 years of patience. 5 years of taking the step without the reward. And if your life feels like that right now, like you're pouring effort into empty soil, hold your ground. Because growth doesn't always show when you want it to. Sometimes it waits until the roots are strong enough to hold what's coming. And you are growing roots right now. Every hard decision you make without recognition. Every early morning where no one sees. Every time you choose what's right over what's easy. That's depth. That's structural integrity. That's becoming the version of you that doesn't collapse when the pressure builds, because your foundation was formed long before anyone noticed. And science backs it. Neuroplasticity shows us that repetition, especially under resistance, rewires the brain. It reshapes how you respond, how you think, how you lead yourself. It turns struggle into structure, silence into strength, and roots into reach. Because one day, the breakthrough will come. People will see the rise, the shift, the version of you that seems to have grown overnight. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't luck. It was everything you did in the dark. Every step you took with no audience. Every moment you stayed the course when the path looked barren. That was your becoming. And now it's time to rise. At first, you took the steps hoping to reach something. A goal, a finish line, a version of yourself that felt just out of reach. But somewhere along the way, something changed.
You stopped chasing a result and started trusting a rhythm.
You stopped waiting for approval and started listening to your own voice. Because it turns out, the real transformation wasn't what you were chasing. It was who you were becoming on the way. Every step you took without applause taught you something. Every swing you made when the stone didn't crack rewired something. Every inch forward, every choice that felt too small to matter, it mattered. Not because it changed the world, but because it changed you. And maybe you didn't notice it as it was happening. Most people don't. The shift is quiet, but one day you look around and realize the old voice in your head, the one that doubted, stalled, hesitated, it's quieter now. Not gone, but no longer in charge. You've proven something to yourself that no one else can give you. That you show up, that you finish what you start, that you can trust your own footsteps because you know how they're made. That is what progress looks like when it's real, not a flash of lightning, but a deep, steady burn. Not a single triumph, but 100 silent votes cast in the direction of who you were always meant to be.
And when others see you now, when they ask how you changed, how you finally broke through, they'll expect you to say it happened quickly.
But you'll know the truth. It happened slowly,
Patiently.
step by step, and you wouldn't trade that process for anything. Because the result is powerful, but the person you've become, that's permanent. There's one step left, not the next goal, not the perfect plan, not the leap they told you would fix everything. Just one step, the one right in front of you. And it doesn't matter where you've come from. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck or how many times you've started over. It doesn't matter if you're tired, behind, unsure, or afraid. Because this step, it's yours. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, but to mark this moment in your own story as the moment it changed. The moment you stopped waiting. The moment you became the kind of person who takes the step. Before the motivation, before the clarity, before the fear goes away. Because the most powerful people you've ever admired didn't leap. They climbed, they faltered, they doubted, but they didn't stop, and neither will you. Because everything you've heard, every story, every truth, every quiet metaphor, it all comes back to this. You don't need to be extraordinary to begin. You become extraordinary because you do. So when this video ends, don't scroll to the next voice. Don't wait for the next hit of hope. Pause, breathe. Ask yourself one simple question. What's the next step I can take today? Then take it, however small, because that step is your bamboo seed watered, your 100th swing at the stone, your 1% gain, your red X on the calendar. It's not a step anymore. It's a statement. I'm still moving. And from this day forward, that's who you are. Not the person who waits, the person who moves, step by step, always forward.